Welcome back to Curse, Code, and Crown, a live play Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition podcast featuring a fully original world and campaign. I am the wizard Cronox, observer of time. Curse, Code, and Crown features our regular voiceover artists and improvisers, Laura Elizabeth as the Orc Count Eta and Princess Gwendolyn, Tyler Hewitt as Makka Deathcap, and Ryan LaPlante as Duncan Danno, alongside our dungeon master, the incredible Tom McGee. So get ready for an adventure including thrills, chills, and hope for a brighter tomorrow. It's time for Curse, Code, and Crown!
Having been thrown from the storm, part of the storm, you find yourselves in a more different storm. You are not far from where you hoped to exit. Of course, any exit point from the hurricane in the canyon would have been a worthwhile trip. In this case, you find yourselves probably about half a kilometer south of where you entered. So sort of that ridge that you came up through. So still within sight of where the stars had remained. But also far enough away that it's a bit of a pain in the ass. The dwarves are pretty banged up between the fighting and this trip. They're not in great shape. You don't get the sense they'll be particularly helpful in combat, but also they aren't fighters really. They're scientists and engineers. They start tending to each other and kind of checking on you guys, making sure everyone's okay. There's a real general sort of somber tone with the last stand of Cake Stand Kelly, but they know there's a job to be done, so they're very much into kind of like mourn the captain later. We got shit to do. You're back in the vertical horizontal rain. The wind is still whipping, but again, you're at a bit of a distance now. Unfortunately, you can see the bolts leaping between clouds again. It would seem that the interference effect that Sylvia fired off has dissipated. So you are exposed, but as always, they're not hunting you. They are merely dropping from the sky when it suits them. What do you do?
Everyone is okay from this wreck.
Yeah, no one is like dying. They're just all pretty banged up. You can think of it almost as like a bad car accident where, like a bad non-fatal car accident where everyone's just kind of like hurt and sore. There might be some busted limbs, but everyone is more or less okay.
So for my brain summation, it's kind of like dwarves can't fight, but dwarves can carry their own wounded. Like we're not worried about that.
Dwarves are self-sufficient. You don't need to like worry about where they're going.
We can protect the dwarves. Dwarves will look after themselves.
What you probably need is to like direct them somewhere. And they might be able to help you if you have like gear you need done. They might be able to do some minor things there. But basically, they are now in survival mode, not in tremendously helpful NPC mode.
Okay.
So I imagine the three of us are kind of in our own little huddle, having got the group out and pulling things back.
They're taking care of each other. Yeah. They also, though, given that Cake Stand Kelly deferred to you, Duncan, they're also kind of taking their marching orders from you.
Great.
You get the sense that Ed, the guy you met outside, who's chasing down the floats, is probably the most senior guy left. So he's giving orders, but they're definitely like this is so far beyond their like go spend 6 months at the research station vibe that they're also really not dressed for this weather. Like they're dressed for little jaunts outside their habitat, not this. And
I'm imagining with the storm and everything, this does not qualify as a short rest. I'm not wheedling. I just want to be clear.
You can take some hit die if you want. Yeah, I would say you can take, let's say, 1 hit die.
Okay, yeah, that's reasonable.
Because no, it's not really a short rest, but it is a breather.
Chance for some bandaging.
Yeah. Plus, you have the dwarves who can assist. So
I'll take those 2 hit points I rolled. Which honestly feels like the most story accurate amount.
I would say you could take a short rest if you didn't want to try and catch up to Sylvia. But
yeah, we got to talk about this, and then we could probably make that decision.
Yeah.
All right, friends, it looks like we've inherited ourselves a convoy of innocents, so we do need to keep these dwarves safe from the bolts and anything else that'll come our way.
The plan.
I really only see two options, and only one of them is good, but feel free to chime in with another if you've come up with it, because we have the option of continuing to the observatory with these friends, then we go to war with Sylvia Tome, the science piece of shite, and then we give them the observatory, take cover there, or I guess we march them back. Sylvia does whatever evil Sylvia needs to do. I can't even conjure that one. That's why I don't count. That's my 3 that's not even a number. Or we try to send them back to Malvern without us, but they have no combatants. I don't see them making that journey alive. They've got no equipment, no coverage, nothing.
I can assist with moving them.
Interesting. What can you do?
Conjure forth beasts to aid in moving people.
What kind of beasts do you think you could get, and how long would they last?
I can provide us with 8 horses.
How many dwarves do we got, Tom?
We'll say there's I guess 12 left, but they could double up on some of these horses. Yeah.
How long do your horses last for, Magic Makka? There's the Magic Mike parody I want. Came up with that afterwards, but I'm still happy with it.
Nice.
Someone online, give me that.
Yeah, he has to like put clothes on to while he dances because he doesn't have any to start.
I want
Like,
that
yeah,
poster
get those
photoshopped
jeans
so
on. These are uncomfortable. Like, yeah.
They will remain on this plane of existence for approximately 1 hour. It also requires concentration on my part.
Interesting. Would an hour, if we can get them back to like the swampy part of things with the horses running, Tom, would that get them back to Malvern as opposed to what
It
we've had
won't
to
get
do as,
them
like,
all the
normal
way
people?
back, but it will get them close enough. Nev had given you instructions for if anything.
Oh, yeah,
went,
where to get
like,
found.
completely pear-shaped. So there are basically, the best way to think of this is similar to kind of like what a forest ranger or something else would do, kind of out in a nature preserve, where it's just like, okay, well, like if you get lost, here are the places you can go where we regularly patrol. So if you are in these zones, we will likely run into you. Can't guarantee when, but then, so Nev's basically, his recommendation to you is like, even if you're injured, if you can get even close enough that I can see you from one of these spots, I'll come get you. And the beautiful thing about like a warrior troll is like, he is fucking bulletproof. So like his whole, and he basically spends all of his time here saving stranded people. So yeah, if an hour is more than enough to get them close enough that Nev will find them on one of his patrols.
All right, I'm thinking
If that's your goal.
I'm thinking we can send the horses to Nev with them riding, and I'll give them my hooded lantern so they can flash signals to get attention faster if they end up out of position. That feels like our best option. They're safe no matter what fate befalls us.
I can provide us with transportation as well by changing my shape.
How much are you going to have left if we have to fight the gnomes people?
Time is of the essence, and I did my best to save lives back at Mardi Gras. What was it called?
It was
Mardi Gras?
they're from
Mardi
Fortress
Gras.
Mardi Gras.
In Louisiana, New Orleans.
Oh, I didn't make that connection. That's good. Wow, serendipity.
From the stone house, yes.
Yeah, we can call it the Stonehouse. That's useful.
This day has taken much from me, but I will give all I have to see this done.
Here's the question. Should we storm ahead now in the hopes of a speedy vengeance, or should we send these people, make camp for an hour afterwards, so we lose 2 hours on our hunt, but it gives you a chance to recover some of your energy and get these people out of the zone?
No. I need proper rest, sleep for that.
All right, then we're kind of fucked on that front. So
The more time we give Sylvia, the closer she comes to her dark, treacherous machinations.
It just,
right.
in the background, honestly, with Ida's had like time to rest. So you just hear her muttering in kind of a Frenchish sounding way with just words just like betrayal, like corruption, best paper I ever read. It's just like things like that.
Love it.
all right, so yeah, let's send the horse people on their way, and then we have an hour to track down Sylvia. We'll try not to engage in combat until we know that they've had the majority of their travel. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And he just turns to give the orders to his new dwarven people.
So they thank you profusely. Obviously, this has been a hell of a thing for them. And they refuse your offer of the lantern. And still got his flare.
Perfect.
So he thanks you, but he's got what they'll need.
Nice.
And they just kind of there's in the sense that only like usually it's like a lost traveler, but really that sense of like without you guys they would be completely fucked, and they all know it. So there really is a true sense of gratitude in them as and to some extent you can already see kind of a bit of the survivor's guilt of like both their compatriots and like leaving you guys to the fight. But they kind of nod, and Ed comes over and he palms you, Duncan, a just sort of a small satchel of shells. There's just 3, but you get the sense they'll fit. Or sorry, there's 2. So you got 2 barrels, right?
Yes.
You get the sense they'll fit Mr. Bang. And he says, Kelly was from a pretty long line. She was the last of them, unfortunately, but her family used to specialize in these little guys. Incendiary. They explode on impact. So when you see something you really want dead, possibly something with a catchy science song, these will do you good.
Amazing. What do they do mechanically, Tom? Just so I make sure I've got it written down.
What is your standard damage?
Standard
Mr.
damage
Bang?
is 1d10 plus 3 piercing.
Okay, cool. These guys do 2d10 plus 3 piercing. So they're basically just double damage.
Great
shots. So you get 2, but they'll
go off in one round of gun.
Yeah. Or if you can also choose though, like you could also only load 1. It's completely up to you, but you have 2 that you can use when you see fit.
Ed, this is an honor, and I will see that justice is done, because Lady Justice does not sleep, she does not forget, and I am her chosen avatar on this planet. How many of your fellows were lost back in the stone house?
He immediately pulls a number. I'm having to reach for it. He wouldn't, but 8.
Does that include Kelly, or is Kelly the 9th?
He kind of grimaces and he says, "Yeah, Kelly's the 9th. 8 of us went down fighting the wisps when the turbine blew out."
My friends and I will see justice for those 9 before we leave this earth. You have my oath.
He kind of nods and he says, "You may be just about the best person to ever shoot me in the chest." And he smiles and he just takes off a set of beads. He says, "These are my first ones for you and for Lady Justice." And he kind of slings them around your neck. And then he just kind of turns around all business and like gives the let's roll signal, because he knows you guys have business to be about. He's not gonna waste time bending your ear. He will, however, Makka, I don't know if you'd want one. They will give you 3 of their masks that will basically allow you to have better visibility and basically will just prevent you from having to roll the survival checks in the storms. So he gives you 2 of those. Makka, would you take one as well?
He's not going to need it because he's not going to remain in portal form.
But would you want it for late? I think, do you know what? Duncan
he'll take it. It's just he won't be able to wear it right away.
Duncan would take one for him and put it in his bag if Makka was not immediately coming over. Because Makka seems like the guy who's like, I'll be a different animal right now. Duncan will be the Makka turtle might need this later. Put in.
Yeah, he'll outsource his eventual survival necessities to your bag. Great. So with that, they are ready to depart. Makka, describe how these horses arrive.
Makka like brings his hands together and sort of conjures forth a cloud of spores that he sort of like nurtures in between his hands, and he spreads his hands out wide, and it like basically bursts into a thick cloud. But the rain and the winds are so violent that the cloud only remains for a moment, not actually as long as would be ideal. So it's blown away just in time for you to see 8 horses, and the 9th horse is wetly stepping out of the 7th, wetly stepping out of the 8th to form 9 horses. There's one that is clearly like a head taller and darker and has the crescent moon of Jossi on its forehead, and it steps towards Ita and Duncan. It's got like thicker, stockier legs. It's definitely hardier. That is a war horse, the form that Makka has taken. The rest of these are riding horses, and they all basically trot over to the dwarves and patiently wait for them to mount up.
Damn.
The dwarves are all like a little taken aback by how dope this is, but they get over it quickly and mount up. And with the final wave from Vance and Ed and the rest of the dwarves, they take off at full speed back in the direction that you guided them. Now with your mighty warhorse, Makka, it's up to the 3 of you how you want to approach. You can see in the distance the Spiros Observatory. You know where it is. You can also see what look to be kind of like runner lights along the sides that are now visible, just kind of red, blinking red lights. And beyond that, the observatory awaits. How do you want to approach?
Tom, how far away is the observatory if we had to guess by like foot? Like I'll cut to the question rather than trying to get us to go back and forth on info until I just know it. But Duncan is trying to do the math on would Sylvia already be there if she'd set off earlier with her gnome people? Is there a chance we can get between them in the observatory, or is it just they're there, we can get there fast?
Odds are they are there, but likely recently arrived. It's not super far away, as you'll recall from when you were deciding to go to the observatory or to the gnomes. However, they're on foot. They are lighter and also likely left earlier. Like you're not entirely sure, but based on how long that fight seemed to have been going on, odds are strong that she may, like, in all likelihood, sabotaged the turbine, like seduced Kelly, got all the information she needed, did the science she needed to do on site, sabotaged the turbine, and then probably left before the turbine blew.
Yeah.
So odds are they had a pretty good head start. That said, they would still have to figure out how to fix the acro pick, how to actually pick the lock, how to get in, how to power it up. So realistically, if you'd taken the full hour, very much like inside fortified, they've got their thing. Now it's like inside likely starting to fortify, but it's not like they have full control of the tower yet.
All right, then. Duncan would talk to the horse before he climbs on, kind of thing, while Ida's there, and he'd be like, I think we need to get straight to the observatory, see what their position is, and then advance an assault once we know what we're going up against. Does that make sense to everyone else?
You get one nod from the horse and a...
Excellent.
Ita's just kind of muttering like, yo, why is this? Yes, of course.
All right. Would it be more comfortable if I put a blanket over your back, or would you rather we just sit on you?
The hooves are kind of clomping in impatience.
Fuck it, get on the horse. I think he'll jump himself on and help Ida up afterwards, because he does not want Ida riding from the front.
That's fair. I feel like you lean down to help Ida, and as she like pulls your arm, you almost fall off. She's just that much bigger than you, and was like kind of just using you as momentum more than anything else. So you both mount up, and through the rain and the wind, you begin to make your way. So in order to reach the observatory, you do have to ride sort of through the storm. As we established, the bolts are back in town, and unfortunately, with the collapse of the Stonehouse turbine system, wind elementals are now also on the table. So basically, the worst of all the storms are now happening. So, Makka, I think for you, I think you're actually the one who's going to roll this check, because it's really your speed and your dexterity. I don't feel like you need anyone driving you. You're just kind of doing your thing. I also don't feel like you as a sentient creature would react the same way a horse would to being driven.
He wouldn't spook like a horse. He wouldn't get frightened and kind of rear or anything like that. Yeah.
Well, I also mean like if, for instance, like you don't have a bit, but if you did have a bit and say Duncan were to pull on the bit, I don't think Makka's brain would be like, oh, he clearly wants me to do this thing that like trained horses do. It'd be like, ow, ow, oh, over here. So I feel like you would be driving unless, Duncan, you feel like you would be actively trying to guide Makka.
I think Duncan will be trying to guide, but here's what I'd like to sell Tom, just a more passive version, because I think Makka's got horse senses and would know what his body can do and can't do. And I think realistically, Duncan has ridden horses, but he's not like a knight. He's generally an on-foot guy. They've been travel purposes. However, he does have in his archetype, which is that he's a matador, so he can add his charisma modifier, which is +4 to dex saves against dangers he can see. Would it be possible for him to confer that ability as his assistance to Makka? So
yeah, I'd buy that. And so that'd be more so just like tapping him on the side of the neck and anything else to
and talking to him.
Yeah, that's the thing is he can just
Point
take
that out.
verbal instruction like a horse cannot.
Of course. Yeah. Well, I mean, Mr. Ed can, but most horses can't.
Well, Mr. Ed gives it.
Not as good as not as good as advantage, because I don't think it would be that much of an advantage, but I believe that +4 would be
I
big
100% buy that. I think that's great. All right, cool. So Makka, then, as you pound hooves into the ground, rushing forward, I think, what are we going to roll for this? Probably athletics, I'd imagine.
Right.
Sounds about right.
Yep.
Or strength. If I don't know if your horse has skills.
War horses have 18 strength. Athletics is fantastic.
Dope.
Can they join my volleyball team?
So that's a total of 15.
Did you add the +4 for?
No, so that would be 19.
19, even better. All right, so this is like just a badass like end of a fantasy movie. You know, bolts striking the ground around you, and you're just slaloming through them.
Yep.
Duncan, you're calling them out as you can see them. Ida, would you be assisting, or are you still reeling from the revelations around Sylvia Tome, the science gnome?
Ida probably isn't going to do much unless directly addressed and asked to do something. It's going to take a bit to get her attention.
I understand. Also, this isn't her forte, right? Like, wild chases through the wind and the rain.
No. No.
Excellent. So you managed to dodge the threats en route, which is fantastic. So you don't have to stop and have any fights. And sure enough, soon thereafter, you see the observatory kind of looming large. And it's here that you start to encounter the bodies. As Makka, as you pound forward, at first you just think it's rough terrain. But then you realize that in the undergrowth, there are a number of sort of twisted, old, desiccated, kind of exposed bodies. And you see more and more of these. It's not like a massacre, but there's definitely a non-zero amount of bodies at the base of the observatory. As you slow, I assume you wouldn't just like charge the door. So as you kind of slow to a trot, at a safe enough distance that you can like start to creep in and whatever else you choose to do. The three of you have a moment kind of in the underbrush. The tower itself does have a clear, similar to the stone house, sort of a large circular cleared space made of stone at its base that is a little overgrown but clear. So unfortunately, there isn't like full cover all the way up, but nature doesn't extend to the base of the tower, as you would imagine from buildings and such. So you're still far enough away that you aren't directly visible. There are some bodies on the ground that are old. What do you do?
Makka will slow down to like a walk as we approach.
Well, friends, Sylvia, we know, is guilty. Her party. Normally, I would think we need to take them in, determine guilt, all of those things, but Stabbo is dead and was shot in the head. And Kelly didn't do it, and none of the other dwarves knew they were betrayed. So that would mean that this group has fully thrown its lot in with Sylvia.
Makka Horse nods.
There's no need for a warning from me. No need for a declaration of justice. This is saving the observatory and stopping whatever evil is being done here.
She was willing to destroy us. She was willing to kill everyone back there.
That's correct, and 9 people paid the price for trusting her.
Everyone in her teams keeps saying for science as they do cool things. It is not science. It is just having fun and making a mess.
Yes,
it is ridiculous.
This is much closer to anarchy than it is to science.
I agree. It is a bastardization of science.
I believe we should approach the edge of the trees, see what we can make of their camp. Stay as a horse, Sire Tortle. And unless we can come up with something more clever, this is feeling like one of those charge out of the woods and assault kind of moments. My greatest fear is they'll have some way to close the door that requires the magic key while they're inside and we can't get there. So I'm thinking it might be a rush through the exterior and get inside before they can stop us.
Horse Makka will carry on into like the cover of jungle and things like that. And wait.
Yeah, then I think we'll just do that stealthy advance as slowly and as carefully as we can. This isn't like just this for you, Tom. I'm like, I don't see us being like, we need to speed stealth. This is the like, if we get spotted, we're really boned for the whole planning. So ultra careful. Okay. But yeah, stealthing forwards to see if we can see anything.
Great. Go ahead and roll me stealth checks, please. Except for Makka, because you're hanging back, being a horse, doing your thing.
Ooh.
19 for Duncan.
6. And it's not because she's like tramping through. It's not because she's being careless where she steps. She just can't stop.
Well, we haven't heard the result of a 6 yet. If you want to use your inspiration to re-roll. I don't know if this is the roll, but it's an option.
From the way you've described it, it sounds like this wouldn't be to her, but I leave it up to you.
That is true.
Yeah, I want to save that inspiration.
Okay. So you're muttering away. And I think also like tripping over these bodies. Like Duncan is just purely focused on like tactical assault, but like you're just like a person. You're not a soldier. Yeah. You're not.
I don't think I'm tripping over. I think I'm aware of the bodies. I think I just can't stop. Like in my head, it's just going and going. Yeah, and it's like with everything around me, I'm not even aware that I'm saying these things.
Yeah, no, fully understand.
Knowing she's so distracted, Duncan is going to look back and gesture her to go right. And then he's going to go left. So if somebody gets the drop on her, he can try to get the drop on them because she's a mess.
So the two of you begin to stealth up to the tower. One of you stealthily, one of you loudly, but both of you thinking you're doing a good job of it. You reach the base without incident. And Duncan, I feel like as Ida is like picking her way across, muttering, you like roll up on the dais and rush the door.
Because I think we were going to stay in the shrubbery to see if there's something blocking it. If there
I see. So you're not. This isn't your. Oh, I see. I'm sorry. This is the stealth to observe the tower, not to reach.
Yeah, because we don't know if there's like a tent outside with 30 guys in it.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
If
no,
it's
I got
just
you.
open, then
no.
Call horse bucket.
No. Yeah. So yeah, you stealth around. The front door is closed, and to your disappointment, there is a Tesla grid set up framing the door, which is now closed, and also seems to have an electrical field charging across it. Also, as you watch from the shrubs, there's a spark, and you see a bolt that was headed kind of to the distance, change trajectory as it falls and kind of be dragged closer towards the base of the tower. So it looks like they've reversed the polarity on this thing, where previously it was a bright green. Now these Tesla coils are glowing red, and it would seem they are drawing bolts toward the entrance.
Well, this is a fucking disaster. Duncan would back up, like just gesture at Ida to stay, because he's aware she can't really sneak right now because she's a bit of a mess. So just tell her to stay there, and he'd go back and bring Makka forward to like take a look at it. Are there windows in the observatory around it, or is this pretty dead face wall with
doors? So the good news for your purposes is from the base of the tower. So this is a massive observation tower, serves the purpose as a lighthouse as well. A decent visual reference for this is just A, lighthouse, or B, the CN Tower here in Toronto. In that so it's not that tall, but it is very tall. It's not that tall, but it's actually it's in the ballpark. It's not that tall, but it's in a fantasy realm. It's tall enough that it's like fuck. I mean, it's
above the clouds.
So. The observatory, is above the clouds. So wasn't always, but is now. So it's on the outside. There aren't like windows. There aren't like portholes or anything. The good news is that there are features. Like it's not a sheer side. So Duncan, based on kind of your understanding of things, there's a front door. Inside, there's likely a conveyance system to the top, but there's nothing to see on your way up, which means that you're actually in pretty good cover if you wanted to climb. But if you're doing that, you're climbing the whole way. Alternatively, there is this door. There is likely, no one would build an entrance with one door. There's likely another entrance somewhere. But if Doc Malvern's clinic folk don't know about it,
yeah, we're not going to.
You're not going to just find
that good at this.
So,
well, friends, we could try to climb, which I will tell you, I'm shite at. I got a lot of pitons, so we could just spend a very long time doing that. Otherwise, who has an idea on what we can do with this door? Ita, you're sort of a math person, and Makka, you've got the weirdest knowledge about nature. We want to break that. And he just is pointing at it with one finger in that weird repetitive way as he's thinking how to break something. Because usually that is a Duncan skill. It's just, there's a way to cheat to win this, and I need to know what it is.
Trying to remember back to how they were using these things defensively. First of all, these two Tesla coils creating a gate or grid over the doorway, they're outside the lighthouse?
Yeah. So these, sorry, I should be more clear about this.
Is it like exposed machinery that we could just try and smash these things?
These things aren't unlike the original grid that was freestanding. These things are actually seemingly they've like built a frame of coils. Okay. So they're kind of like drilled into the outside of the observatory. So you could still try and break them. That said, the intent is very clear with these, that they're very actively trying to keep anyone, but probably specifically at this point, you, out. So there is exposed machinery. Unfortunately, it does look like have had the time to install it. Duncan, based on your eye, this is likely what they spent a lot of time doing. It was like picking the lock and setting this up were likely their two big investments.
Yeah, they had time for one trick. So there's only one, but it's still a fucking good trick.
And it likely means they don't have full control of the observatory because they probably spent a lot of time getting this up and running. Now, to your second question, Makka, what you do remember about the earlier setup is all of those coils were powered by the things under the tent. So there must be a power source for this somewhere. This isn't a natural feature of the observatory. However, there are red lights now running up the sides of the observatory that weren't there before. So they have seemed to be able to restore some power. Realistically, odds are that they rerouted whatever the dwarves were sapping back in. So
it's still similarly that defensive grid where it's a field that like we can't necessarily move through. Mm-hmm. But if I remember correctly, bolts were basically attacking that grid over and over again and wearing it down, right?
That's correct.
Okay. So Makka has a plan then.
Is Makka still a horse, or is Makka?
He will shed the horse form.
Nay.
Yeah. The horse will basically decompose and kind of sloughing off turtle form remains.
Amazing. Every time.
I cannot predict this, but I'm a big fan of yours. All right, what do you got?
I believe I have the capability to channel lightning. Have it strike at this gate. Perhaps not unlike the many bolts attacking the grid at that camp, causing the gates, the fences to weaken,
All right,
shut
so
down.
that might be able to overload them, which is clever. But do you think you draw down bolt? Does the bolt come from you to there, or does it come from the sky to there?
It is from the sky. It is a manipulation of nature. Given that there is already a storm here, its effects will increase in potency.
Do you think if we accidentally gave a couple of bolts a ride, they'd come after us, or would they attack the electrical structure?
I know I would not have any control over elementals that come from the sky.
Oh, yes, no, I'm just asking everyone's opinion on what we think bolts would do, which is, are we the worst thing, or is that the worst thing?
I know I can create this phenomenon from some distance. Perhaps we could find safety, shelter, and then commence the attack.
All right, yeah, we could build some sort of blind of some kind out of wood or something else. So here's what Duncan's thinking. I'll just do this because it'll be faster than like a 20-minute conversation with Duncan trying to describe this. When I did survival training as like a 13-year-old at camps, what you would do if you had to build a structure was you'd take branches and shit and like longer, bigger pieces of wood, and you'd almost build like a lean-to around a tree with a little gap in it. If there's enough wood, can we build something like that quickly, kind of hide within it, and then just fry that friggin' door with lightning? Tom, would that be...
Yeah,
I don't know what you want us to roll, but that seems where my brain's at.
Probably be survival because we're dealing with survivally stuff. Laura, you've been slyly grinning this whole time. Do you have something, or is this just Laura the player
It's
enjoying
just
the planning?
Laura, my own reference. I'm literally just like, if anyone knows Avatar: The Last Airbender, I'm just like, Makka's just gonna like redirect lightning.
Great.
Sorry.
So
I'm making the finger signs,
Yeah.
motions that Aang does when he redirects lightning.
And-
That's
and-
all I've been grinning about the entire time.
all good. It's all good. We know we got a lot of Avatar fans listening, and I'm sure I will be one when eventually I watch it.
That's cool. Ita, can you help Makka figure out exactly where we should be targeting our lightning strike on this thing?
Yes, I will. I think this will be, if I can, an investigation.
Yep,
Of
sure.
just
I'll take
like having seen it work before and having done the cool cable
You
shit.
literally operated it.
There's something,
that. Yep, I'll give it to you at advantage.
Nice. 24.
Very good. So yeah, having observed Sylvia's tech up close and knowing the rough shape, also having been inside the tent, you are also aware of how like it was impressive at the time because she was your hero. But it's sloppy science. Like nothing is coupled properly. The only way it worked was by turning the knob past the number written on the side, which is highly illogical. You can't crank a 10 up to an 11.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter how cool it sounds. So you fully believe that, and are able to convey this to Makka, I think, that like there is very little chance that this is a sound system.
Mm-hmm. I think I will say, to kind of convey my changed thoughts on Sylvia, when I first saw this system and saw what she was doing, I thought there must be something that she knows, some greater science that she knows. There is not. It is just ridiculous. None of it makes sense. It is bad science, and I will ruin it.
So with that, Makka, for your spell, do you have to roll? How does this ability work?
So, Call Lightning is a 3rd level conjuration. It's concentration, but it lasts up to 10 minutes. A storm cloud appears in the shape of a cylinder that is 10 feet tall and 60-foot radius, centered on a point you can see 100 feet above you. and the casting range is 120 feet out from you. So that's great. When you cast a spell, choose a point you can see within range. A bolt of lightning flashes down from the cloud to that point. Each creature within 5 feet of that point must make a dex saving throw. A creature takes 3d10 lightning damage on a failed save. And if you are outdoors in stormy conditions when you cast this spell, the spell gives you control over the existing storm instead of creating a new one. Under such conditions, the spell's damage increases by 1d10. So it's just more potent lightning spells.
All right, so
It's amazing.
cool. We'll say Ita's analysis and kind of observations just kind of further to the point of like, yes, if you hit this thing enough, it'll overcharge and blow. Is there anything else you want to do before you fire this thing off? You can put together, Brian, you can roll me a survival check if you want to put together a lean-to. That said, based on the way Makka is describing this, I don't know if you need...
No, we could just
distance.
we could be 100 feet away and wait, because the bolts have come down every time we've seen them, wander around, get bored, and fuck off back up. So
Yeah,
I
they
liked it though,
dissipate.
Ryan. We'll use the lean-to later.
thank you. Laura, I think? Not Ida, but Laura. Thank you. All right, well, now that we've talked about that spell, fuck the whole lean-to, we can just go stand back there and wait for them to fuck off after they've done their work.
Yeah.
All right, fuck it, let's do this. It's time for us to show a gnome what steel tastes like. And he's just ready to go back far enough away to launch this attack.
Makka will also, because this Conjure Lightning is concentration, but this other spell he wants to cast is not, he will say,
I'm going to enlist the help of some that are already here.
and he would like to cast Animate Dead on 3 corpses under the growth.
I sincerely hoped in my heart of hearts, and here we are.
This is not the same as his spore ability. These are going to be fully fledged skeletons or zombies with hit points and stats and stuff like that. This is a different, potentially darker kind of magic. That
all right. Describe how these things stand up, and then I'll tell you what they look like.
Instead of his spores that he uses to kind of just sort of like the cordyceps fungus, like we talked about, makes corpses ambulatory. In this, I think he enlists the help of, I've talked about it before, the fae and fairy creatures that kind of live in the toadstools and mushrooms kind of all around him. He summons them down to basically come down and sort of nest within these bodies. And so the eyes and mouths kind of glow with fae light.
Yes.
And
he's casting that at 4th level.
As they do, the bodies disentangle themselves from the vines and the foliage. Some of them still have twigs and sticks kind of having grown through them, and they crack and stand and turn. And despite the decay and the ruin, you can clearly make out on their Best Buy style vests the crest of the House of Danno. And the 3 of them just kind of turn with glowing eyes and nod to you. Each of them looks obviously weather worn. There's no it doesn't look like they were murdered. They similar to the corpse you found before. You can see burn. Some of them have heavy burns. It looks like they were hit by bolts at some point. But they sort of stand at the ready.
Duncan draws his sword immediately and aims it at the undead, and he's like, "What the fuck is going on here?"
They are under my control.
Where did you learn this magic? This is unholy. You've been against the undead and the unnatural every moment I've known you.
Yes, this is temporary. The manipulation of life and death. Those seek to forestall their death forever. This is unnatural.
So if they're a necromancer that raises an army for only a little while, that's okay?
What is the army for?
oh, we're not going down this road. Fuck it. And he just fucking fucks right off. He's not doing. This is an existential crisis for him, but this conversation clearly will not help him with it.
Yeah, just wait till your next boat ride.
Yeah.
Amazing. So with your undead helpers, Makka, it is time to summon the storm.
I cast Conjure Lightning and I target the doorway.
Do you release spores? What do you think this looks like?
I think this is the symbol of Jossie on his head and chest glows. And I think not to actually rip off what Laura said about Avatar gesture, but it basically
rip it off, baby.
Do it.
I think
Please
it's kind of like he raises his hands and grabs something invisible. You can tell he either has phenomenal improv object work or there's something invisible in the air just above him that he is latching onto. And he starts to turn it like a wheel, and the clouds in the sky 100 yards up also start to spiral to match his gesture. And then he starts to pull, but there's resistance, and he finally pulls his hands down and lightning cracks out of the sky and strikes at the point in the doorway.
Amazing.
We'll continue to do that.
Yeah, the lightning strikes fast, furious. Bolts are leaping off of it and kind of assailing the ground. But you can see the coils just charging, and you can almost hear that electric whine of when motors are overtaxed. You can see them beginning to tremble, and as you watch with your 3 silent sentinels looking on with you, a final crack of lightning strikes the door, and there's a bright flash as the coils erupt into flame, blowing the door inward. And you hear a scream from the other side, and the bolts begin to converge on the door. Two science gnomes come out, wielding. One's wielding a pair of pistols. The other has an axe. But they're quickly overwhelmed as the bolts funnel through the door into the base of the observatory. The way lays open to you, and justice is calling. It would seem that now is the time to go serve up some justice to Sylvia Tome, the science gnome, her science compatriots, and perhaps finally figure out what is causing the eternal storm.
This episode of Curse Code and Crowd Sound was mixed and edited by Laura Hamstra, and the campaign was created by Tom McGee. Our original theme music was composed by Landon Knoblock, and Curse Code and Crowd's logo was created by the brilliant Decapitated Markers. If you want to follow our players or our DM on Twitter, you can reach out to Laura at EL Hamstring, Ryan at the Ryan LaPlante, Tyler at Tyler_Hewitt, Tom McGee at McGeeTD, or you can message our whole company at DumDumDice. So please, join us again for more Curse, Code, and Crown!
Dum Dums and Dice has to give a special thank you to the supreme beings of our Patreon at this time: Christian Menicola, the Half-Blind Prophet, Christopher Little, Sue One, George Dolby, One True Artistry, Orion Birchfield, Lord of Bradovic, Noel Lewis, Scott Garland, Anthony Griffin, Benjamin V, Gavin and Abby McDonald, Cade Peters, Richard Cranium, Anna Zed, Eric Williams, Logan Fire Unfriendly, Acrix, Cameron Ezel, Grandma Likes D&D, Alan, Austin Nut Powers Fry, Stabby Stranger, and Jill and Noel LaPlante. If you want your name to be added to this list, you can join our Patreon too at patreon.com/dumdumdice. Thanks to them, and a little bit of thanks to you.